Jessica, and today I'm bringing you my top 5 foundations for photographs. And this is so important if you are about to get married, or maybe you're just in a wedding, or maybe you're going to prom or homecoming, an important dance, an important work event, a Christmas party, whatever it might be, or maybe you're just getting your photos taken for headshots if you're an actor or something like that. It's really important. Your foundation is your face. I mean, your eyes are important, but you can't really go wrong with a lot of different eyeshadows. But with foundation, that's like everything. And that's the base for, you know, your blush and everything. And on top of that, if you're using flash photography, which most photographers do for certain events, you want to make sure that it is exactly right for those photos so you don't look like a ghost or anything like that. So if you are interested in learning more about my top 5, stay tuned. So the number one thing you want to make sure before you pick any foundation for photographs is that it does not have a really high level of SPF. And that is because with certain SPFs, it can cause flashbacks. So what I would recommend is just avoid SPF altogether for the event. You know, there's certain types where like, oh, this kind of sunscreen's okay as long as it's not this kind. I would say just steer clear if you're not a professional when it comes to that. I'm not either, so I just steer clear completely. So all 5 of these I have worn in flash photography. I know they perform beautifully. They don't have that white cast. And be aware that whatever moisturizer you put on under your foundation might have SPF as well. So double check that if you're wearing a moisturizer underneath that it does not have any sunscreen. That goes the same for primer as well. The primer I love is this Rimmel Lasting Finish primer. It's really, really cheap. I actually just filmed today as well my like top drugstore primer video, and this is my number 1 because it is moisturizing. It gives your skin kind of the satin finish to it. It doesn't look really, really dry and matte, but it also doesn't look really, really oily. But on top of that, it actually holds onto your foundation all day. So this is one that I love and I would recommend. There are lots of great primers, but this is my favorite. Now, let's work through this. I have 3 high-end and 2 drugstores. I love drugstore makeup, and that's, I mean, you guys know that about me, so I always offer drugstore options. But these drugstore options are ones that I would wear over the high-end ones. I mean, they're just amazing. So I actually have a demo of me applying one of these drugstore ones that I'll show you here in a second. But let's kind of count down here. My number 5 top foundation is the Too Faced Born This Way foundation. This one, I love the packaging. It's really cute and it's got a pump, which is really, really nice. However, this one is just beautiful on your skin. It just kind of perfects it. It's got pretty good coverage. I would say when I wear this, I don't really need a second layer of it, but sometimes I will, like my nose is always red, so sometimes I'll put it on top of my nose more than once. But it's a beautiful foundation. It blends really easily. It doesn't have SPF, of course, and it's just gorgeous. It feels really nice on your skin, really satiny. I think that if you have really, really oily skin though, it might break through on your skin a little bit. So for me, I found that it worked fine because I have combo skin, but I think if you have really, really oily skin, this might not provide as much mattifying coverage as you might need. Now you could still wear this and just put maybe a powder foundation on top or a loose setting powder to help control the oil, but it really is a beautiful foundation and it has really nice coverage. Next in line is one that everyone raves about, and I bought it for my wedding and I wore it kind of in conjunction with another foundation I'll mention. This is the Makeup Forever HD foundation. This one was just reformulated to be the Ultra HD, and I don't know if there's a huge difference, so I won't talk about this long. But to be honest with you, it's nice, but I don't think it's any better than the other drugstore ones I'm going to mention, so I don't think it's worth spending the ridiculous amount of money on. Honestly, these 2 are both really good, but again, the drugstore ones are just as good. But this one again has a pump. It's a kind of thin formula that you blend in, and it feels nice. To be honest, I feel like I should reorder because I almost feel like the Born This Way I like a little bit more than this one, but this one's just so highly revered. I think if you have really oily skin, this one might work a little bit better because I do feel like it's a little bit more mattifying. You can almost tell on my skin it's just like a flat, whereas the other one was a little more satiny. It kind of depends on your skin type, but that's all I'll say about that because it was reformulated and I don't know a lot about the new formulation and how I think they're really, really similar, but I'm not for sure. The next one I'm going to mention is one of my favorites. This is the Gorgeous Cosmetics Base Perfect Liquid Foundation. This one, again, has a pump. This one's even more expensive, though. It is just, I don't know what it is about this foundation. I'll apply it down here. But this one's a lot darker than my skin right now. It works kind of on my face, though. But it leaves the perfect satin finish. It's got the perfect amount of coverage, but it doesn't feel like you're wearing any foundation. It's kind of the weirdest thing. The other two, I feel like I'm wearing foundation, which that's not that big of a deal if you're being photographed. I mean, I don't mind feeling like I'm wearing makeup, but this one just works for every day. It works for photos. It's just beautiful. It does have a smell, though, that I think might bother people. It's kind of a perfumey, musky smell. So if you know that would bother you, then stay away, because it is kind of a strong smell. But I think this is absolutely beautiful. This is a line that I know the Kardashians like. That's what I've heard anyway, the Gorgeous Cosmetics. It's just beautiful on the skin for every day, but this is a really hefty price tag. So let's talk about my two real favorites, the drugstore ones. So my number 2 is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation. This is actually too light for me right now. I've got, you know, our skin fluctuates in color throughout the year. So this is one I wear more when it's winter time, but this is in 102 Shell Beige. It's a squeezy foundation, and it is amazing coverage. It's very, very matte, however. Now for me, I don't love a very matte look, but if you do or you have really oily skin, you will love this foundation. What I will say is I'm having trouble finding one that's more yellow toned for my skin. So if you've got more of a rosy tone, you probably have really good luck. But for me, that's where I'm struggling, finding the right shade, because they're either way too dark or they're way too rosy. I haven't found a really nice yellow, lighter-ish shade for me. But the formula is absolutely amazing. It really is amazing. And when this came out, people lost their minds, but for good reason, because it's one of the first drugstore foundations that are crazy high coverage, comparable to the Makeup Forever HD or any of them, but it's so much cheaper. So absolutely amazing, especially if you have oily skin. Now my number 1 that I'm going to show you a demo on is the Revlon Color Stay Whipped. I love the Revlon Color Stay, but that one has a little bit of SPF, so I don't risk it. But this one has no SPF at all. What stinks is that the packaging is a glass jar, and anything that's in a jar breeds bacteria. So for this, after I've had it for a few months, I typically buy a new one just because, I don't know, you're dipping your finger into it or your brush or whatever. You can use like a little scoop to get it out, but even still, air is getting into it every time, air and light. So just something to keep in mind, but it is one of my favorites. I wore this in parts of my face for my wedding. I kind of did both the Makeup Forever. To be honest, I don't really remember exactly what I wore on my wedding day, but I made my video a while back, so I think I mixed this with the Makeup Forever HD, or maybe I don't remember. But if you're interested in all the makeup I wore on my wedding, I'll link it below, because I have a whole video on every single thing broken down that I wore, because I did my own makeup, which was very nerve-wracking but exciting. Anyway, this foundation is a thicker foundation, which I love, because if you've got any like weird, I say weird because I've got some, like I've got a pimple right now right there, but I'm wearing it today, and this it's the most beautiful. It's like thicker, but it's like a whipped gel formula. That's the best way. Now this is a little light for my skin right now. I had to bronze it up a little bit, but it is the most beautiful satin finish. I think it is gorgeous in photos because it makes you look like you're glowing from within, but not shiny. Now I've got highlighter on, so if you're saying like, your face looks shiny, that might be why, but I think it is the most beautiful foundation I've ever tried. This has been one that I've loved ever since it came out years ago. I just constantly have it in my collection, and I constantly reach for it. I travel with this, even in its stupid, giant, heavy glass jar. I still love traveling with it because it is so amazing. So let's get into, if you're really interested in how this particular foundation works, let's get into the demo of me applying it so you can kind of see how I use it and how it looks when you apply it to the skin. Okay, so out of all of my options here, I'm gonna apply the Revlon Color Stay because it's the most affordable out of all of the options, but it's also just one of my favorites. I've tried a lot of high-end foundations, and this is just one of my favorites. So I wanted to prove to you guys that these drugstore foundations really can do just as well as any super duper expensive foundation. So I just kind of patted it everywhere. I'm using a Real Techniques brush called their Expert Face Brush. This one I think runs around $10 and it's worth every penny, and it lasts through like a million washes. So I'm just gonna start at the center of my nose and just kind of lightly blend it, starting from the center of my face and blending out. Wanted to show you the coverage of this. I have a pimple right there that's kind of healing. Really, it's now just a dark spot. It covered it pretty well with just one layer. And I also always have a red nose. Right now I'm cold in the room I'm filming in, but my nose is just always red, so that's something I battle all the time. But this is a pretty good job with one pass at covering it, but you can still see a little bit, and you can still see a little bit of pigmentation, so I am just going to do just one other full layer. And what's nice is depending on your own skin, you know as you look in the mirror if you need more, or maybe you only need that one layer. But with something that's as inexpensive as this, I don't mind doing another layer if I need. Now on a normal day basis, I don't do a full second layer. I might do a little more on my nose, but I usually just wear one. But if you're gonna be in photos and you wanna look flawless, I would say a second layer of this won't hurt. Just again, make sure you get the right shade, not the one I'm wearing for my skin tone. What I love about this foundation, now that I look like a ghost, is that it feels and looks very satiny. So you can still see there's a natural glow coming through my skin, but it didn't add that glow. It was kind of what was already there, and it just kind of makes it look even nicer. If you're really oily, you'd want to set this with a nice powder. I really like the NYC translucent powder. I take the little sifter out of it, and you can just kind of set it on there, let it sit, and then dust it off. Or you could use, like, I love the Rimmel Stay Matte powder. Even if you're not as oily, this is one of my favorites because it mattifies enough, but not too much where you look like a porcelain doll. But it provides coverage. It leaves a nice satin look to your face, which I think is beautiful in photographs. But there's always the option of making it look more matte. But what's nice is it doesn't dry my skin out. So as you can see, I clearly love that foundation. Any of these you'd be good with. So if you've got like a Sephora gift card and you're wanting to splurge on a nice foundation, any of these foundations that were expensive are really, really nice. But I really honestly love these even more than those. And I find myself reaching for these more than those. The only exception would be this gorgeous one I love and I reach for all the time. However, it's so expensive that this is not one, I don't think for any of these, I wouldn't repurchase them once I use them up because I like them and I'll use them, but I kind of see that that was a lot of money spent for things that, I mean, I can kind of dupe at the drugstore. Do you know what I'm saying? Hopefully this review was helpful for you guys. Please let me know what else you'd be interested in me reviewing on my channel. I can link my entire review playlist where I demo all kinds of foundations, eyeshadow palettes, lipsticks, whatever you'd like, I can link below. If you're interested in more videos from me, definitely subscribe and I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.